I want to welcome our global audience today for an informative and really interesting session with Prime Minister Lee of Singapore. I want to thank you, Prime Minister Lee, for participating in today's U.S. Chamber Forum on the Global Economic Recovery. And I want to thank Mr. Prime Minister, your ambassador to Washington. Ambassador Min Puri has not only been a terrific ambassador, but he really did help set up this interview today. The Prime Minister assumed his duties in 2004, but I want to say that he's really one of the great international statesmen and someone who has a great perspective on many of the pressing challenges we face today in the global community. So it's really my pleasure to welcome Prime Minister Lee, and I know we look forward to all your comments on areas where we have shared concerns and shared challenges and perhaps shared opportunities. The world has changed quite a bit, Prime Minister, since you and I got together in Washington, D.C. at the U.S. Chamber in 2017. And boy, do I wish we had conditions which would allow you to come visit again soon the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and be in Washington. But we're going to take full advantage of this virtual forum to conduct an interview today. Let me just say to our global audience that Singapore very much plays a pivotal role in the global economy. Certainly, $300 billion of direct investment from the United States is just one measurement of the important economic weight of Singapore. But Singapore has commercial and obviously important destinations for ports in terms of trade links to China, to India, to the rest of Southeast Asia, and of course, to the United States. Prime Minister Lee, you and your government have not only capably managed the COVID crisis in your country, but you have played an important role over time in promoting open trade and investment. And I want to thank you for being with us again today for this important forum. Let's start with a question around COVID. I think it's very clear that you and your government have capably managed the COVID situation, but containing the virus is an ongoing challenge. We'll look at India and the potential for contagion, the concerns we all have about the spread of the virus and the spread of variants. Tell us a little bit about your experience, how you've managed it, and what you see is the role of the international community to combat this virus in countries all over the world that are suffering and struggling to really manage through this period. Prime Minister?
Well, we've had an unforgettable 1+ year now. We've had some difficult times. We had quite a big outbreak of COVID-19 in our migrant worker dormitories. But in the general population, with a great effort, we kept cases low. Our fatalities have been very low. So far, we've had 32 fatalities in total for the whole country. And we are in a stable position, but far from out of the woods, because right now we have a fresh super spreading cluster. And we've just tightened up our restrictions and gathering rules again. So the conclusion I come to from this is, firstly, that you can not afford to slacken. Each time you think you've got it under control and you know how to respond to it, it pops up in a new direction. It can be a mutant, it can be a new avenue which you didn't spot, but you cannot afford to slacken, and you must always think beyond what you imagine is likely to happen. Secondly, for us, prior experience has helped. We were lucky or unlucky to have had SARS in 2003, and that primed our system to gear up for a next new disease and primed our population to understand what was at stake and what kind of collective responses we needed. And so it made it easier for us this time round to have the right policies and to have the population cooperate with us and make the policies work. And it's like that with South Korea, with Hong Kong, with quite a number of the other Asian countries too. Thirdly, it has reminded us of the importance of international cooperation. By and large, that has held up. There has been scramble for PPE at the beginning. There's scramble for vaccines now, doses. But internationally, the supply chains have not broken down. You can still buy iPhones made in any number of countries. You can still buy cars, which parts come from many continents. And we have not taken giant strides towards autarky. Protectionism, yes. Autarky, no. So that is a qualified plus. We are a small, open country. We have to deal with it as things go along, and we can't afford to seal our borders off. Other countries bigger can, to a very great extent. For Singapore, you need food, you need fuel, you need people moving in and out, even during COVID. And you have to do it to the extent that you can while keeping ourselves safe with all the precautions, testing, contact tracing apps, protocols to make sure that people come in through proper procedures and are vetted and so on. Not without risk, but unavoidable. To open up completely and to open up again and have free travel, I think is a long way off. Even travel bubbles, countries talk about it, but that needs confidence on both sides. And we only want to bubble with countries which are safer than us. And that means it's not easy to make a match. But I hope that as societies get vaccinated and as confidence returns and the disease gets brought under control, that will be possible. India worries us a lot, but it's not just India where it's who are in a very difficult spot now. But Latin America has had a very difficult time. And other parts of the world, Africa, for example, where cases are still low, at least the reported cases, but it's not, the vaccinated population is very low also. And we are very anxious that what has happened to the rest of the world will not befall Africa too, which would have consequences not just on that continent.
Prime Minister, you briefly touched on this in your opening thoughts and reflections, but I want you to just tell the international community, what is really your approach going to be to reopening travel? We know how important travel and tourism is going to be to recovering our economies worldwide. So what is your approach? And you mentioned travel bubbles, but are you part of an international consortium to try to encourage more travel going forward to reopen as quickly? Can you give us a little bit of clarity about your approach here?
There's no international consortium yet because I think the countries are not yet ready to do so. In fact, some of them are still tightening up their rules because of the recent outbreak of more transmissible mutants. But in our case, what we are trying to do is to establish travel bubbles with other countries where we have mutual understanding of each other's situations and mutual confidence that we will be open with one another and will keep things under control, or if not, we'll fly a red flag straight away. We have a travel bubble agreed in principle, agreed with Hong Kong, but it has not been implemented yet. And as things are, it may be a while before it comes into effect. We have various ways of having safe travel between us and other countries, limited numbers, but at least it keeps the channels open. Beyond that, we would like to have a wider ink blot and join all these travel bubbles together, but I think it'll take a while.
Prime Minister, let's talk about trade. As a country, Singapore is obviously very trade dependent. And I know you worry about bottlenecks and vulnerabilities in supply chains. A number of countries in Southeast Asia are looking to really reshore or to nearshore supply chains, perhaps from China. There's a lot of policy ramifications to that. You know, a lot of major economies around the world, the United States and Europe, and other countries are contemplating changes in policy around supply chains, partly in response to the COVID crisis and national security considerations. What do you propose we do as a global community to ensure that trade flows are kept open and that we fortify against supply chain disruptions?
I think that it would be very, very harmful if every country tried to make everything onshore. And anyway, it's impossible. You can have the final assembly of your devices in your own country, but to make everything, all the components yourself is a stretch. And to get all the raw materials yourself I think is in most cases going to be impossible. So we have to cooperate with one another. I think there will be greater desire to have more resilience and less just in time, more just in case. But if that goes too far, the price is going to be very high. And you can't even make vaccines all by yourself. You do need not just the raw materials, but also the bottle stoppers, all sorts of things which come from all around the world. So to solve these problems, one by one is impossible. Bilaterally, which I think the previous administration tried to do, one-on-one, is very hard. And you do have to work multilaterally with more partners in order that we come together and we establish rules which apply to all of us, and we can cooperate together and establish trust amongst all of us. And I'm very happy that this administration in the US is re-engaging with the WTO. It has weaknesses, but we should work together to remedy and strengthen the WTO, not to marginalize and cast it aside. I think that's at the top level, but there will be many other areas of cooperation regionally. Singapore, we ourselves, we've joined in the CPTPP. We are participating in the RCEP, which is an Asian trading group. And we would like to pursue this further, not just traditional trade, but also new areas. For example, digital economy partnership agreements or green economy partnership agreements, which may be perhaps politically more acceptable and more doable in America. Ideally, we would like America to be part of this and to be negotiating trade arrangements with other countries. I think realistically that you're busy now, and the political climate in Congress and in the country probably wouldn't push for this, to put it very mildly. But I hope that the mood will change and you will find your way forward to have a positive trade agenda before too long, and possibly one day find a way to work your way back into the CPTPP. After all, America was a major architect of that. And the House is basically what America had a part in designing and crafted, even now.
Well, Prime Minister, we could not agree with you more at the U.S. Chamber. I mean, after all, 95% of the customers we want to sell to live outside the United States. So clearly, we want to see a strong WTO system. There's a need for reform, as you suggested. And we also agree with your idea around a digital arrangement. And we'll be talking to our government about that, be assured. Let me talk about U.S.-China relations next, because you have a critical relationship with both the United States and China. You've watched the trajectory of this relationship over many years. You've seen the increasing tensions in the relationship over trade, human rights issues, over technology, the regulation and national security aspects of technology, over South China Seas, and over many other areas. We all know that having a stable, constructive, and pragmatic relationship between China and the United States is critical, not just for the bilateral relationship, but for the world economy, and certainly from your lens. Tell us what needs to happen in both Washington and Beijing to put this relationship on a more stable path, and what's the stake, in your view, for the rest of the world?
Well, for the rest of the world, everything is at stake, because if the U.S.-China relationship goes sour, you're going to have a state of tension, anxiety at the very least, and conflict possibly all over the world. Certainly all over the Asia-Pacific, or as now America prefers to call it, all over the Indo-Pacific. And that is going to be bad, not just for other countries, big and small, but for both America and China too, because both America and China are countries with enormous economic and technological power, with high-tech capabilities and weaponry and nuclear capabilities, and modernized armed forces in the case of the PLA, and the most powerful armed forces in the world in the case of the US armed forces, but not so powerful that when you go to war, you don't take casualties and expect to absorb a lot of damage. So if the two countries clash, I think everything is to be lost. And therefore, it's necessary for the two countries both to decide to work together and accept each other as they are, but work together and find common ground where they can cooperate. And there are many. Climate change is one where you are talking, and John Kerry has been to China already. But it can't just be climate change. You've got nuclear non-proliferation, you've got public health, you've got pandemics to come, you've got global trading needing to be on a stable basis in order that companies can import, export, trade, and develop the business and prosperity. And the two countries have to work together. But it means that both countries have to reconcile their international stances with their domestic political opinions, and both have domestic political opinions, even the Chinese, and overcome the nationalist instinct to say we will look after our country's interests, but we'll do so by cooperating with other countries, whether or not we fully trust them and whether or not they are our bosom friends. But they have to be our partners on this planet. And for China, that's a big deal, because the Chinese have reached a point where they feel that they've not only stood up and they've become wealthy, but they want to become strong and be acknowledged as such. But when you're strong, you're not the only strong guy in the world, and you have to know how to have that strength accepted by others over the long term, as the US has been able to do since the Second World War. I mean, you have the most powerful fleets and aircraft and army, but you have a lot of friends around the world. And people work with you not just because they're afraid of you, but because they think that there's room for them, you leave room for them, and you are doing good for the world, generally. And for the Chinese to adopt such an attitude, I think it takes time. For the US to accept that China is a fact that is not going to disappear, and you've got to work with it, and you can try to influence it, but you can't convert it. And it's not going to become like a European country, much less like the United States of America. I think that takes it's a big psychological thing for America to accept, and it takes great statesmanship to make it work and to make Americans go along with such a policy. But that's what you need. And if you don't do that, and the two countries clash, neither is going to curl up and die. It's not like the Soviet Union. There's no Potemkin village in China. It's real. The vitality, the innovation, the drive, the prosperity, the determination to get ahead. And neither is America a declining and fading society. So somehow you have to come together. And I think that's the responsibility of statesmen on both sides.
Is there a wish on the part of Singapore or nations in Southeast Asia that the United States evolve its policy towards Asia outside the US-China context to perhaps rejoin the TPP or take other initiatives that you think would be important? And just briefly, because I want to also get to climate in this conversation.
Yes, of course. I mean, we would very much like you to rejoin the CPTPP, but we don't think it's on the cards. I mentioned talking about digital economy cooperation to establish norms and standards and for data transfer, for data transparency, for accountability, for where data has to be hosted. These are things which are not so contentious, but would be important in the new economy, or cooperation on the green economy. Green financing or sustainability standards. These are things which we hope the US will have the bandwidth to put on the agenda.
Mr. Prime Minister, you spoke at the White House Climate Change Summit last month. So I just want you to quickly summarize some of your reflections. You've got countries in Southeast Asia are very dependent on coal and obviously other natural resources. But we have to take on the battle of climate change as a global community. What do you think is needed here now, and what can happen if we all work together?
Well, first of all, we should carry out what's been agreed in Paris. And the fact that the US has come back and will do its part, I think, is a big plus. Because if the US is not part of this, everybody else will say, why should I do my part? The US is free riding. But if the US is back, well, there's a possibility of doing what is in Paris. But honestly speaking, all the scientists believe that even if we did everything that is in the Paris Agreement, it won't be enough. And you have to go further, and you have to go further in a fair way with the big emitters making a big adjustment, and the other countries, big and small, each doing their part, including Singapore, which is not just small, but what we describe as alternative energy disadvantage, because you don't have hydro, you don't have geothermal, we can't have nuclear, there's no place to put the power plant. But we do have some sunshine, and we'll make the best of that, although the sunshine alone will not be enough. But to go beyond Paris, well, the next occasion will be the COPs meeting in Britain at the end of this year. And we hope that the countries will come with proposals to take things forward, and we will be there, and we hope to help the negotiations advance and to help Britain as chairman or president of the meeting make it a success. Everything is at stake because it's not just 1 or 2 degrees Celsius, but what that means for sea levels, what that means for storms and droughts, what that means for coastal cities and low-lying areas, and what that means for war and peace, because climate change means large social and economic disruptions and migrations and human conflict. And you can adjust to them over centuries. But if it happens within a few decades, I think you're putting humanity under stress.
Prime Minister, you have been very generous with your thoughts and reflections today. And I just want to say on behalf of everyone listening today, the important role that Singapore plays in the global economy, the important role that you have played personally in issues like the U.S.-China relationship, trade, and many others. And I want to just thank you on behalf of the U.S. Chamber for participating today and sharing some of your thoughts. Time will leave it now with this interview, but we'll come back to you and hope to see you soon in person. Stay safe, and thank you for participating today.
Thank you very much.